All right, everyone. We are doing the casing in of the multi-section flatback. And we need a few things. We need our brush. We're going to trim the end sheets a little bit before we put it into the case. We have our case drying under weight. And I'm going to take that out from under the block. And then you're going to need wax paper. So I had pulled out my sheets of wax paper, which I'll just set to the side for now. So this is my case. It's just, there's not cased in yet. The first thing I want to do is I do need my bone folder because I'm going to find the spine in here and score up against it. So I've got to, you can kind of see it in there right here. And I just want to fold to that. So I'm going to fold. And it's completely dry because this is dried for a day. But even if you just dried it for an hour or two, it should be okay. But I'm going to fold to that, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to kind of sharpen that crease up against the boards. And you don't want to go too crazy because you could accidentally pop through the cloth right there. So, I mean, I'm using some pressure, but just not, as hard as I can. And that's what I want, is a joint that looks like that. And then I find the other side. And so all I'm doing is just finding that folder card inside and then folding to it and then scoring up against it and really creasing it down hard. And I'm worried about that edge up against the board, but I'm really trying to crease out here at the fold where the board is inside, so I can get as sharp of a spine as I can. So like that. And then before I do anything else, I can just kind of check and make sure this is going to fit the way I want it to. So I'm pushing it into the spine of the book. So I'm pushing my text block into the spine like that. And that looks great. That looks really good. And just checking that everything fits. So this end band is sort of poking up above, but just a tiny bit. It's not bad. But that looks great. So before I case it in, I am going to trim this end sheet. So this first end sheet here, I just want to shave off a little bit because when I glue this out, this is going to get completely glued out and cased into the book. I can get a little bit of stretch because the grain is running like this. And if there's going to be any stretch, it's going to go along like with the grain and pull. This is a subtle thing. It sounds like a big deal, but it would be small, but it would be maybe even up to a 1/16 of an inch, depending on the paper. And we don't want that to happen. So if it does happen, we just don't want it to overhang the case or be too far at the edge of the case in there. So we're going to trim this down. And you just need your X-Acto and your ruler, and you just open to the first, just a single sheet, the one end sheet that's going to be the paste down in the book. And then I just take my ruler and I'm going to cut off. I usually try to do about a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a little less than that. And then flip the book over. So now you can see the difference there. Just a tiny bit shorter. And then flip the book over to the other side and trim that one, that first end sheet. It doesn't matter if the book falls back, it's okay. That's this one. I think the one underneath it is a little bit short already. Okay. All right, so those are both trimmed. And now we're going to case it in. So again, so we need some kind of sheet to put inside and glue. So I'm going to tear So I've got a sheet this large, and that's the size of my book. So I think a half of this would work fine. And this is, again, just whatever scrap paper you have to glue with is fine. And I'm just real quick cutting that in half. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm going to use your glue. How to hold your book in place. And this is just a helpful little tip. Just take a little dot of glue, and I'm going to put it on that little flange on the right there. Just a little dot. And that's going to help me when I'm putting the book in, help it be held in place. Now, it's no guarantee. It's not like if you do this, there's no problem and it's not going to come out of place. That's not true. But it will probably help hold it in place a little bit as you do this first case, as you case in the first side. So I put the book in again. I want to make sure that the back of the spine of the text block is flush against the folder card spine of the case. So that's really what I'm focusing on, is I am centering the book inside the case, head and tail, but I'm also mainly pushing back while keeping this 90 degrees to make sure that it's in the back of the book. So you can also use your board if you want to try to square that up and have something to push against. That's helpful. And try to push it all the way back against the spine. And there's that little dot in there holding it, but it's, it's a light hold. So then I put the dot there. So I'm going to work on the other side. I'm going to flip the book over like this, and I'm going to open it. But then I'm not going to move anything. This is where I want the book to be. I'm going to put my newsprint underneath. And the first thing I'm going to do is glue down the flange. So I want to glue just right underneath where that flange is going to get glued down. So I'm just going to put glue underneath that area. So I'm just staying even with that. And then if I come out past it a little bit, that's fine. I'm just putting glue underneath the flange like this. Okay, and then I'm going to push that down. And now when I glue out the rest of this sheet, I want to leave an unglued space of about a little more than 1/18, maybe even 3/16 of an inch right at the spine. So I'm going to glue everything except that little bit. And so what I usually do is I start in the center and kind of get the glue going. And then I come in and I draw this little line with the glue that's going to leave. And I'll show you on another example what this is. It's going to allow the book to release right at the spine. And then if you go past that line, if you accidentally, just kind of gently wipe it. And then once you've got that line, now you're just going to glue out the rest of the sheet. And I'm holding the book in place because I can't let go of it, because if I do, even though that little dot of glue is helping me hold it down in place, it could easily pull out of place, just completely pull out of the case. And if that happens, you can put it back, but something gluey it's just harder to deal with. So that's why that little dot on the other side helps kind of hold the book in place while you're doing this. Okay, so it's completely glued up. And then I'm going to take this sheet out, fold it up, get it out of my way. And now I'm just going to take the book, and we had it in place. And now I'm just going to let the cover fall. And then I push straight down. So I'm not pulling forward. I just let it fall down and put it in place. And then, so with this book, once you've done this process, once you've cased it in, you're not going to open it again until it's dry. Because if you do, it's going to be a problem. So now I'm just barely lifting. Let me kind of put this up a little bit. I'm just barely lifting the cover like that. And I'm going to slide in my wax paper. So you do want to make sure that you've only got one sheet there. Sometimes you kind of have to peek, and if another sheet accidentally stuck, make sure you pull that down. But the one that's flush and glued should not be visible. You can't really see it. But okay, so I pull that up, pull this wax paper in, and then just slide it back. Okay. So then I can flip the book over. And now I can open to that side where I held that little dot of glue that was being held, and it sort of tore off of the paper there. If you look here, you can see the little tear, but it doesn't matter. We're going to just glue it down. So now the book is in place. Now it's a lot less, questionable as to whether or not it's going to move, because I've already glued in one side. So now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just glue up against the flange and pull the glue out straight. So we're just gluing down the flange. And I'm just gently pushing that down, because when this gets cased in, it's going to be tight. But then I come back and draw that little line of unglued area. Oh, I forgot to put my newsprint in. Yikes. Before I get to the edge, I started noticing it. Okay, put that newsprint in there. Glue this out. Okay. Pull that out. And then I'm going to close the book again, just straight down. And just push it down in place. And then take my wax paper and just pull it up. Make sure only one sheet. And with mine right now, I can see there's a sheet sort of sticking to the other one. So I'm just going to make sure that's down. Can't open it. Do not open this. And then I'm going to shimmy that little wax paper sheet in there. Okay. So now this is the hard part. I'm going to stop the video and make a new one, because I've got to use my phone to show you how to do this next part, because we're going to have to stand on the book. So for right now, for just a few minutes, I'm going to put this under a board and just put a weight on it for now. But this is not enough pressure, because what I'm going to show you to do is you're actually going to put this book between two boards or two books. If you have like a cement block, you could actually use just the cement block, but we have to put a lot of pressure and weight on this book. So the only way that we all have access, what we all have access to, is our body, and we can stand on those boards, but you've got to put it between something, otherwise you'll damage the book. This is not what I would recommend most of the time. I'll probably show you in this next video, when I'm showing you how to case this in or how to nip it, I'll show you a nipping press, because I have one in my studio, and I'll just show you that process. But then I'm going to show you how to put it between boards and stand on the book. So I'll show you that process. But for right now, I'm just going to put this in. Oh, and let me just show you, while we're at it, why we can't open the book, because this is what you want. You want a release right here, and it's kind of hard to see. This is unglued right inside. You look inside here, that paper is not glued, and it's not glued to this spine back here and into the joint. That's why we don't glue that little bit, okay, right here. That little strip down the side of the book, when we're gluing, you leave it unglued. This is why, so that it will release completely and lay pretty flat when you open it. Now, if I have this book kind of slightly damp with glue and I open it now, that area right here will pull away and leave this little ugly bubble, like an unglued bump. And that's why you don't open the book. And that's why, when I was shimmying under the wax paper, I'm kind of barely opening the book to do that. That's why we do that, is to make sure that this does not pull away. So it's this delicate balance of this unglued portion, which we want, but you don't want any more than that unglued, because then it just doesn't look good. It's not a tight binding then. So that's why you don't open it, okay? Very important point. So even after we nip it, after we stand on it, you want to leave it under weight, some kind of brick or other books or whatever, just some kind of weight, so that it can dry completely before you open the book, which is at least a couple hours. You don't want to take it out from under your weight, okay? All right, so I'm going to stop this video and then I'm going to show you how to stand on your book to nip it, okay? All right.